The air in the bustling cafe carried an intoxicating mix of optimism and triumph. Ethan Carter, a distinguished millionaire with a reputation built on loyalty and hard work, sat at a polished oak table near the window. This day was meant to be the pinnacle of his career, celebrating a massive business deal with his lifelong friend and partner, Logan Adams. The deal, meticulously negotiated over months, promised to secure their company's dominance in the industry, cementing a legacy of shared success. As Ethan adjusted the cuffs of his tailored suit, his sharp eyes swept across the room. He felt a deep sense of pride, not just for the empire they had built together, but for the trust that had been the cornerstone of their partnership. Standing across from him, Logan appeared equally confident, scrolling through his phone with a casual ease that masked the gravity of the occasion. "I'll be back in a moment," Ethan said, standing and placing his napkin neatly on the table. Logan nodded without looking up, absorbed in his screen. Ethan's footsteps echoed softly against the tiled floor as he made his way toward the restrooms, savoring the quiet satisfaction of the moment. It had been a long road, paved with sacrifices and relentless effort, but this deal would elevate their company. Yet, while Ethan was away, the fragile trust that had defined their partnership began to crumble. Unnoticed by anyone, a young waitress named Sophia Blake approached their table, her steps tentative as she carried a water pitcher. Sophia had been working at the cafe for months, blending seamlessly into the background as she served the affluent patrons who frequented the space. But today, fate placed her on the path of a revelation that would change everything. As she neared the table, Sophia's sharp ears caught the low murmur of Logan's voice. He was leaning into his phone, speaking in a hushed tone that betrayed his confident demeanor. "Everything is set," Logan said, sending an unexpected chill through Sophia. "Ethan has no clue. Once the deal is signed, I'll control everything. It'll be too late when he realizes what's happened." Sophia froze, her grip tightening on the pitcher as the full weight of his words sank in. The man sitting at the table, Ethan's closest friend and trusted partner, was plotting a ruthless betrayal. The water in the pitcher trembled as Sophia's hands shook. Her instinct was to retreat, to leave this moment behind as none of her concern. After all, she was just a waitress, invisible to men like Ethan and Logan. But as Sophia stepped back, the gnawing pull of her conscience stopped her. She glanced toward the doorway where Ethan had disappeared and then back at Logan, who now wore a calm expression as if his sinister words had never been spoken. Sophia's heart pounded as she wrestled with her thoughts. Could she walk away, knowing that one man's trust would be shattered and another's greed would destroy years of partnership? The moment was fleeting, but her choice would shape everyone involved's lives. When Ethan returned to the table, the cafe's hum of life seemed unchanged. The quiet clinking of silverware, the low murmur of conversations, and the aroma of fresh coffee all painted a serene picture. Yet, for Sophia Blake, the world felt heavy and conflicted. From behind the counter, she watched as Ethan, oblivious to the dagger poised over his back, resumed his seat with the air of a man in complete control of his destiny. Sophia's mind raced. How could she, a mere waitress, disrupt this polished veneer of success? She had no evidence, no credibility in the eyes of a man like Ethan. And yet, the image of Logan's cold calculation replayed in her mind like a relentless drumbeat. Every instinct told her to stay quiet, but a nagging voice within reminded her that silence, in this case, would be complicity. Gathering her courage, Sophia waited until Logan excused himself to take a phone call outside. She approached Ethan's table slowly, her heart pounding so loudly she feared it would drown out her voice. When she reached him, Ethan looked up, his sharp gaze softening with polite curiosity. "Excuse me, sir," Sophia began, her voice barely above a whisper. She felt the weight of her every word before they left her lips. "I need to tell you something important." Ethan's brow furrowed slightly as he leaned forward. "What is it?" he asked, his tone kind but cautious. Sophia glanced nervously toward the cafe door, ensuring Logan was still outside. "It's about your friend, Mr. Adams. I overheard something I think you should know. He's planning to betray you." The words hung between them, almost too heavy to bear. Ethan's immediate reaction was one of disbelief. Betray me? Logan? He shook his head as if dismissing the absurdity of the notion. That's impossible. We've been partners for years. Why would he do something like that? Sophia's face flushed but pressed on, her voice trembling with urgency. I know it sounds crazy, but I heard him talking on the phone. He said once the deal is signed, he'll take control of the company and leave you with nothing. For a long moment, Ethan stared at her, his mind reeling. His instinct was to dismiss her claim. Logan was his best friend, his closest ally. Yet, something about Sophia's demeanor gave him pause. Her trembling hands, flushed face, and desperate sincerity didn't match the profile of someone with ulterior motives. You're sure about this? He asked, his tone now more serious, more searching. Sophia nodded emphatically. I wouldn't be telling you this if I wasn't. I just couldn't stay silent after what I heard. Ethan sat back, his mind clouded with doubt. The pieces of his life, so carefully constructed, suddenly felt unsteady. He didn't want to believe Sophia's words, but the urgency in her voice made it impossible to brush off entirely. His gaze drifted toward the cafe door, where Logan stood outside, gesturing animatedly into his phone. Ethan had known Logan since they were young men. They had built this empire together. But could it be possible that his partner had harbored ulterior motives all along? Thank you, Ethan finally said, his voice quiet but resolute. If what you're saying is true, you may have just saved me from a terrible mistake. Sophia nodded, relief and fear mingling in her expression. She quickly retreated to her post, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. The cafe, once a sanctuary of celebration, now felt tense. The papers for the deal sat on the table, a symbol of trust that suddenly felt like a trap. That evening, Ethan couldn't shake the unease from Sophia's warning. The memory of Logan's easy smile felt suddenly insincere, and every casual gesture replayed in his mind with a new edge. Trust, once unshakable, was now riddled with cracks. Unable to let the matter rest, Ethan made a decision. He reached for his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. Daniel Scott, a private investigator known for his discretion and thoroughness. Ethan needed to uncover if Logan was hiding something before it was too late. Daniel, it's Ethan Carter, he said when the line connected. I have a situation, and I need your help. Over the next hour, Ethan explained everything, from Sophia's warning to the enormity of the deal at stake. Daniel listened intently, asking pointed questions. I'll start with his finances, Daniel said finally. If there's something shady going on, money trails are hard to hide. Give me a few days. Ethan hung up the phone, feeling both relief and trepidation. Trusting Logan had always been second nature, but now, every interaction with his partner felt suspicious. The following days became a balancing act. Ethan attended meetings, reviewed contracts, and maintained a professional demeanor around Logan while suppressing the turmoil. Logan, for his part, seemed completely at ease. He laughed, joked, and spoke about their shared future as if nothing had changed. But Ethan began noticing subtleties. A flicker of impatience in Logan's eyes when Ethan delayed signing the deal, a momentary tightening of his jaw during a casual disagreement. They were small things but loomed large in the shadow of Sophia's warning. Meanwhile, Daniel's investigation began yielding results. On the third day, Ethan received a call that confirmed his worst fears. There are irregularities in Logan's accounts, Daniel said, his tone steady but grave. Over the past year, he's been moving money into an offshore account. It's not illegal, but the timing aligns suspiciously with your negotiations for this deal. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. How much money? Enough to raise red flags, several million. He's been siphoning funds in small increments, careful not to trigger internal audits. Ethan closed his eyes, a wave of betrayal crashing over him. Logan hadn't just been planning this for weeks. He had been positioning himself for months. The man he had called a brother had been dismantling their trust piece by piece, all while looking him in the eye and smiling. Is it connected to the deal? Ethan asked. Most likely, Daniel replied. Logan's been consolidating his power, setting the stage to take control when the deal is signed. If you move forward, you'll hand him everything on a silver platter. Ethan sat in silence, the the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. Sophia had been right. Logan wasn't betraying him. He was orchestrating a takeover, one careful step at a time. "Keep digging," Ethan said finally. "I need more proof before I confront him." Daniel agreed, and as the call ended, Ethan felt a simmering mix of anger and resolve. Logan's betrayal was no longer a suspicion, it was a fact. But Ethan knew he had to be strategic. If Logan had spent a year preparing for this moment, Ethan would need to outmaneuver him with equal precision. That evening, as Ethan sat alone in his study, he replayed the past week's events in his mind. Sophia's warning, Daniel's findings, and Logan's increasingly strained mask of camaraderie painted a chilling picture. Trust, the bedrock of their partnership, had been eroded beyond repair. Ethan glanced at the papers for the deal, still unsigned on his desk. His decision was clear. He wouldn't move forward until he had all the facts. But one thing was sure, Logan's betrayal would not go unanswered. The cafe's polished ambience was nowhere to be found in the private office where Ethan Carter waited for Logan Adams. It was a space the two had shared for years, a room that had witnessed their countless victories and a few rare defeats. Today, however, it would witness something far more personal, a fracture that could never be repaired. Logan entered with his usual air of confidence, a friendly smile plastered across his face. "What's going on, Ethan? You sounded serious," he said, sitting across the desk without hesitation. Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying Logan carefully. For years, this man had been his most trusted confidant. Now, every gesture, every word felt like a calculated move. The papers for their deal sat neatly stacked on the desk, untouched, a silent testament to the growing tension between them. "We need to talk, Logan," Ethan began, his voice calm but with an edge of steel. "About the deal and the company." Logan's smile faltered momentarily, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "What about it? We're ready to move forward, aren't we? I thought we were celebrating." Ethan's eyes locked onto Logan's, unflinching. "I know everything, Logan." For the first time, Logan's composure cracked. His brow furrowed slightly, though he quickly masked it with a casual laugh. "Everything? What are you talking about?" "The offshore accounts," Ethan said evenly. "The money you've been siphoning. The conversations you've had with our competitors. I know about the betrayal you've been planning for months." The room fell silent, the weight of Ethan's words pressing down like a lead blanket. Logan's initial shock gave way to something darker, a calculating smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "You've been busy, haven't you?" Logan said, leaning back in his chair. "Spying on me? Digging into my finances? That's a bit extreme, even for you." Ethan's anger simmered beneath the surface, but he refused to let it cloud his judgment. "Don't deflect, Logan. I trusted you. We built this company together. And while I was focused on our future, you were plotting to take everything from me." Logan's smirk vanished, replaced by a bitterness that had been festering for a long time. "You don't get it, do you?" he snapped. "You've always been the golden boy, Ethan. The one everyone looks up to. I've been in your shadow for years, doing the dirty work while you got the glory." Ethan's jaw tightened. "So this is about your ego? You think you're entitled to more? So you decided to steal? To destroy everything we've built?" Logan leaned forward, his voice sharp with resentment. "It's not stealing when it's something I've earned. Do you know what it's like to be second to you in everything? To be the one making sacrifices while you bask in the spotlight?" Ethan's voice dropped, cold and unwavering. "You could have come to me. We could have worked this out. But instead, you chose betrayal." Logan's expression hardened, and for a moment, neither man spoke. The air between them crackled with unspoken anger and years of unresolved tension. Finally, Logan broke the silence, his voice laced with venom. "You think you've won, don't you? Is freezing my accounts and uncovering my plans enough to stop me?" Ethan's lips curled into a faint smile, one devoid of warmth. "It's over, Logan. Your accounts are frozen. The legal team has everything they need to press charges. You're finished." Logan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You'll regret this, Ethan," he hissed, his voice low and filled with venom. "You think you've beaten me, But this isn't over. Without another word, Logan stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Ethan remained seated, the adrenaline from the confrontation coursing through his veins. For years, he had trusted Logan like a brother. Now, that trust was irrevocably shattered. As the echoes of the door faded, Ethan leaned forward, resting his head in his hands. The betrayal cut deeper than he imagined, but he knew he had made the right decision. Logan's departure marked the end of an era, but it was also the beginning of a new chapter where Ethan could rebuild without the shadow of deceit hanging over him. The following day, the confrontation events still weighed heavily on Ethan as he sat studying. He hadn't slept, the betrayal replaying in his mind like a haunting melody. Yet, amidst the anger and hurt, one thought kept surfacing: Sophia Blake. Her courage had saved him from disaster. He might have unthinkingly signed the deal without her warning, handing over everything he had built to a man who had plotted against him. He owed her not just thanks, but something far more meaningful. Later that afternoon, Ethan found himself driving through a modest neighborhood, far removed from the wealth and grandeur he was accustomed to. The tiny homes lining the street were tidy but weathered, their simplicity starkly contrasting with the world Ethan inhabited. He parked in front of a modest house, the address Sophia had given him when they'd spoken briefly after the incident. When Sophia opened the door, her surprise was evident. "Mr. Carter?" she asked, stepping aside to let him in. "What are you doing here?" Ethan smiled warmly, though the weight of recent events was still etched into his features. "I came to thank you properly, Sophia, for what you did. You didn't have to speak up, but you did, and you saved me from a terrible mistake." Sophia looked down, her cheeks flushing. I couldn't let something like that happen. It didn't feel right." Ethan nodded, sitting on the modest couch in her living room. "It takes courage to do what you did, and I want to do something for you in return." Sophia's brow furrowed in confusion. "You don't have to. I insist," Ethan interrupted, his tone firm but kind. "You mentioned once that you had to leave school to care for your mother. I want to help you go back. Whatever you need, tuition, living expenses, anything, it's yours." Sophia's eyes widened, and her voice barely whispered. "You mean, you'd help me go back to college?" Ethan nodded. "And that's not all. I've seen your instincts, your integrity. I think you'd be a great fit for my company. I want to offer you a position, a real chance to build something for yourself." Sophia's hands trembled as she clasped them together, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know what to say. This is more than I ever expected." "Just say yes," Ethan said with a gentle smile. "You deserve this, Sophia. You've already proven you have what it takes." Sophia nodded, her voice steady despite her overwhelming emotions. "I'll do my best, Mr. Carter. I promise I won't let you down." Ethan stood, extending his hand. "I know you won't. Welcome to the team." As he left Sophia's home, Ethan felt the weight of betrayal begin to lift. In its place was a sense of hope, a belief that, even in the darkest moments, there were still people like Sophia whose courage and integrity could change the course of a life. The road ahead promised something new for both of them, a chance to rebuild and rise more potent than ever. Sophia Blake walked through the grand glass doors of Carter Enterprises, a mix of awe and apprehension bubbling inside her. The towering skyscraper, a symbol of power and success, felt worlds apart from the modest cafe where she had worked. Yet, stepping onto the lobby's marble floors, she reminded herself of Ethan Carter's words. "You've already proven you have what it takes." Her first day was filled with introductions, paperwork, and an overwhelming flood of new information. Assigned to work directly under Amelia Johnson, a seasoned executive known for her sharp intellect and no-nonsense demeanor, Sophia was thrust into a world she could barely comprehend. Though initially skeptical of Sophia's unconventional background, Amelia quickly recognized her potential. "You have a knack for cutting through the noise," Amelia said during one of their first meetings. "It's rare, and it's valuable. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Those words became a lifeline for Sophia as she navigated the complexities of corporate life. Her days were long, often starting before dawn and stretching well into the evening, but she thrived under the challenge. Though incomplete, Sophia's background in economics gave her a unique perspective. She approached problems with practicality and creativity that surprised her colleagues, even earning praise from those who initially doubted her. Ethan, meanwhile, kept a watchful eye on her progress. Though his days were consumed with damage control following Logan's betrayal, he found time to check in with Sophia regularly. Her insights during meetings began to catch his attention, and he often asked for her opinion on key decisions. The turning point came 3 weeks into her role. Sophia was tasked with analyzing financial data for the company's upcoming international expansion, a project that carried significant risks and rewards. While poring over the numbers late one evening, she noticed a troubling pattern. Minor discrepancies in the cost projections that, if unchecked, could lead to millions in losses. Sophia presented her findings to Amelia and E at a strategy meeting. As she spoke, her voice steady but laced with urgency, Ethan couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. She wasn't just holding her own. She was excelling. "You've saved us from a potential disaster," Ethan said after the meeting. "This is exactly why I wanted you here." Sophia smiled, her confidence growing with each passing day. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged, not just in the company but in a life she had thought was out of reach. While Sophia was finding her footing, the storm Ethan thought he had weathered was about to return with a vengeance. Disgraced and removed from the company, Logan Adams was not content to quietly fade into obscurity. In the weeks since their confrontation, Logan had been working tirelessly to salvage what he could of his reputation and power. But where he once operated in shadows, he sought destruction in the light. One morning, Ethan arrived at his office to find Daniel Scott, his private investigator, waiting for him. The tension on Daniel's face immediately set Ethan on edge. "We've got a problem," Daniel said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Logan's not done. He's trying to take this fight public." Ethan opened the folder, his jaw tightening as he read the contents. Logan had been in contact with multiple media outlets, feeding them a fabricated narrative of financial misconduct and shady dealings within Carter Enterprises. Though the claims were baseless, they were laced with just enough half-truths to create doubt. "He's spinning a story," Daniel continued. "Offshore accounts, under-the-table deals. None of it's real, but if it goes public, it could damage your reputation and the company's standing." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. Logan's betrayal had already cost him deeply, but this was different. This directly attacked everything he had built, professionally and personally. He couldn't let it go unchallenged. "What's our next move?" Ethan asked, his voice calm but resolute. "We need to get ahead of this," Daniel replied. "I've already started gathering evidence to discredit his claims. The key is to act before he can release anything." As the day progressed, Ethan and his team worked tirelessly to prepare for the battle. They compiled documentation proving the company's transparency and engaged a public relations firm to manage the fallout. But even as they fortified their defenses, Ethan knew that the damage Logan could inflict wasn't limited to numbers or headlines. The betrayal had taken a toll on his spirit, a wound that reopened with every new twist in Logan's campaign. Sophia's role in the crisis. Amidst the chaos, Sophia's presence became an unexpected source of strength for Ethan. She had a way of cutting through the noise, her practicality grounding him when the pressure threatened to overwhelm him. As the two worked late in Ethan's office one evening, Sophia hesitated before speaking. "Mr. Carter," she began, her tone uncharacteristically hesitant. "I know this isn't my place, but you've been fighting this battle alone. You don't have to." Ethan looked up from the papers across his desk, his expression softening. "What do you mean?" "You've built this company on trust and integrity," Sophia continued, her voice gaining confidence. "The people who know you, the people who matter, will see through Logan's lies. But you have to let them. Share your story. Let them see who you are, not just as a businessman, but as a person." Ethan leaned back, considering her words. For years, he had guarded his personal life fiercely, keeping the focus on his work and accomplishments. But Sophia was right. Logan's lies thrived in the shadows of silence. Ethan must step into the light if he wants to reclaim his narrative. "Thank you, Sophia," he said after a long pause. "You're right. It's time to stop letting Logan dictate the story. taking back control. The next day, Ethan took a bold step. He scheduled a press conference, inviting the media and his employees to hear the truth directly from him. With Sophia and Daniel by his side, he addressed the rumors head-on, dismantling Logan's claims with evidence and candor. Standing before the crowd, Ethan didn't just defend his reputation. He shared his vision for Carter Enterprises, a vision built on resilience, integrity, and the trust of people like Sophia, who had proven that courage could come from the most unexpected places. The press conference marked a turning point. The tide began to shift in Ethan's favor as the truth gained traction and Logan's fabrications unraveled under scrutiny. For the first time since the betrayal, Ethan felt the weight on his shoulders begin to lift. As the applause faded and the room began to clear, Ethan turned to Sophia. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Sophia smiled, the depth of her impact finally sinking in. "You didn't need me, Mr. Carter. You just needed to remember who you are." At that moment, Ethan knew that while the battle was far from over, he wasn't fighting it alone. The aftermath of the press conference rippled through Carter Enterprises like a cleansing wave. The fabricated narrative spun by Logan Adams had been dismantled in front of the media, and the evidence presented by Ethan Carter and his team left little room for doubt. Yet, despite the victory, the scars of betrayal lingered. Within the company, tensions eased, but the emotional toll on Ethan was far from resolved. Trust, once broken, left a void that couldn't quickly be filled. Ethan began to see his relationships through a different lens, questioning the motives of those around him. Could he genuinely rely on anyone again? This uncertainty extended to Sophia Blake, despite her unwavering loyalty. While Ethan recognized her role in saving him from disaster, a small part of him wondered if even she had ulterior motives. It wasn't distrust but a wariness born from recent wounds. Sophia, meanwhile, continued to excel. The team respected her for her sharp insights and fresh perspective, and she quickly became a cornerstone of the company's recovery efforts. But she couldn't help but notice Ethan's growing distance. The warmth in his tone, the genuine smile he once reserved for her, had been replaced by something more guarded. One evening, as the office lights dimmed and most employees had left for the day, Sophia decided to confront him. She found Ethan in his corner office, gazing out at the city skyline with a glass of whiskey in his hand. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, stepping inside and closing the door behind her. "Can we talk?" Ethan turned, his expression neutral. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Sophia hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've noticed you've been different lately. Distant. I just want to know if I've done something wrong." Ethan sighed, setting his glass down on the desk. "No, Sophia. You haven't done anything wrong. If anything, you've done more for this company, and for me, than I could have ever asked." "Then what is it?" she pressed, her voice steady but tinged with concern. "I feel like you're pushing people away. Like you're pushing me away." Ethan met her gaze, his expression softening for the first time in weeks. "It's not you," he admitted. "It's everything that's happened. Logan's betrayal. It's made me question everything and everyone. I trusted him like a brother, and he turned on me without a second thought. That kind of betrayal doesn't just go away, Sophia. It leaves a mark." Sophia nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I can't imagine how hard that must be. But pushing people away won't protect you. It'll only leave you more isolated. There are still people who care about you, Mr. Carter. People who want to help you, not hurt you." Ethan looked at her, the sincerity in her voice piercing through the walls he had built around himself. For the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope, a reminder that, though fragile, trust could be rebuilt. "Thank you, Sophia," he said quietly. "You're right. I can't let one betrayal define how I see everyone else. It's just going to take some time." Sophia smiled gently. "I understand. Just know that you don't have to go through this alone." As weeks turned into months, Carter Enterprises began to heal. Once threatened by Logan's smear campaign, the company's reputation regained its luster thanks to Ethan's decisive leadership and his team's dedication. Clients returned, partnerships were strengthened, and the company's future looked promising again. Sophia's role in this resurgence grew with each passing day. True to his word, Ethan gave her increasing responsibilities, and she rose to every challenge with grace and determination. Her ability to navigate complex situations and her talent for uncovering hidden opportunities made her indispensable to the company's leadership. But the scars of Logan's betrayal hadn't entirely faded. Ethan still questioned his motives, second-guessing decisions, and doubting even his instincts. One of these moments of self-doubt was when Amelia Johnson, Sophia's mentor and a longtime executive at the company, approached Ethan. "Ethan," she began, stepping into his office unannounced. "We need to talk." Ethan raised an eyebrow, motioning for her to take a seat. "What's on your mind, Amelia?" "It's about Sophia," she said, folding her hands in her lap. "She's extraordinary. I've worked with many people in my career, but I've rarely seen someone with a combination of talent, drive, and integrity. She's exactly the kind of person this company needs." Ethan nodded slowly. "I know. She's been instrumental in helping us recover. Then why are you holding back?" Amelia asked bluntly. "She's proven herself a dozen times over, yet you still hesitate to give her the trust and recognition she deserves. If this is about Logan—" "It's not about Logan," Ethan interrupted, though he knew that wasn't entirely true. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe it is, in a way. Logan made me question everything. Everyone. I trusted him completely, and he betrayed me. It's hard to move past that." Amelia's gaze softened. "I understand that. But don't let one person's actions taint the good in others. Sophia has earned your trust, Ethan. Don't let fear keep you from seeing what's right before you." Her words stayed with Ethan long after their conversation ended. That evening, he reflected on Logan's betrayal and everything Sophia had done for him and the company. She had no reason to involve herself in his troubles, yet she had. She had risked her job, safety, and peace of mind to do what was right. The next day, Ethan called Sophia into his office. As she entered, he could see the uncertainty in her eyes, reflecting his lingering doubts. "Have a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Sophia sat down, folding her hands in her lap. "Is everything all right?" Ethan leaned forward, his tone serious but warm. "Sophia, I owe you an apology. I've been holding you back, because of my trust issues. That's not fair to you, and it's not fair to this company." Sophia's eyes widened slightly, but she remained silent, letting him continue. "You've proven yourself time and time again," Ethan said. "Not just as an employee, but as someone I can trust. I see now that you're not just a part of this team. You're one of its most valuable leaders. And it's time I started treating you that way." Sophia's cheeks flushed, a mixture of pride and disbelief washing over her. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. That means more to me than I can say." Ethan smiled. "You've earned it, Sophia, and from now on, I will ensure you know how much you're appreciated." As Sophia left his office, her head held high, Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in months, he believed in the possibility of trust, not blind, unquestioning trust, but the kind that grows through shared struggles and mutual respect. That night, as he looked out over the city skyline, Ethan realized that rebuilding trust wasn't just about mending the pieces of what had been broken. It was about creating something more substantial, something more resilient. And with people like Sophia by his side, he was ready to do just that. The announcement came on a crisp Friday morning during a company-wide meeting. Carter Enterprises had finally regained its footing, thanks in no small part to the efforts of its newest rising star, Sophia Blake. For weeks, whispers had circulated among the staff about a significant shakeup in the leadership team, and now Ethan Carter stood before them, ready to confirm the rumors. Dressed sharply in a tailored navy suit, Ethan addressed the gathered employees with the quiet authority that had earned him their respect over the years. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice calm yet commanding. "The past months have been some of the most challenging in our company's history. We faced betrayal, uncertainty, and doubt. But through it all, we've emerged stronger, more united, and more determined than ever." The room filled with a quiet hum of agreement as Ethan continued. This resurgence wouldn't have been possible without everyone's dedication and integrity. But there's one person whose contributions have been truly extraordinary. someone who has gone above and beyond to ensure our success, and whose actions embody the very values this company stands for. Ethan's eyes scanned the room until they landed on Sophia, who sat near the back, her face a mixture of curiosity and nervous anticipation. "Sophia Blake," he said, his voice steady. "Please join me on stage." Sophia's heart raced as a wave of applause swept through the room. She stood slowly, her mind spinning with disbelief and excitement. As she made her way to the front, she caught Ethan's gaze, and the quiet pride in his eyes steadied her nerves. When she reached the stage, Ethan turned to address the crowd again. "Sophia joined us under unusual circumstances, but has proven her worth from day one. Her insights, leadership, and unwavering integrity have made her an indispensable part of our team. I am pleased to announce her promotion to Vice President of International Operations." The applause that followed was thunderous, and Sophia felt tears prick the corners of her eyes. She shook Ethan's hand, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat as she addressed the crowd. "Thank you, Mr. Carter, and thank you to all of you. I'm honored to take on this role and promise to give it everything I have. This company has become my home, and I'm excited to continue building our future together." As Sophia stepped off the stage, the weight of her new responsibilities settled over her, but so did a sense of fulfillment. She had worked hard to prove herself, and now she was recognized as an employee and a leader. Sophia wasted no time diving into her new role. Overseeing the company's international operations was a monumental task, involving everything from coordinating with foreign offices to navigating the complexities of global markets. But Sophia approached each challenge with the same determination and precision that had brought her this far. Her first major project was overseeing the launch of Carter Enterprises' newest Southeast Asian branch. The expansion was a bold move requiring extensive planning and coordination. Sophia traveled frequently, meeting with local teams, negotiating contracts, and ensuring every detail aligned with the company's vision. Though busy with his responsibilities, Ethan made it a point to stay involved in the project. He and Sophia often worked late into the night, reviewing financial reports and fine-tuning strategies. Their partnership deepened, built on mutual respect and a shared drive to succeed. "You've got a natural talent for this," Ethan remarked one evening as they worked side by side in the office. "I couldn't have chosen a better person to lead this expansion." Sophia smiled, her confidence bolstered by his words. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. But I couldn't do this without your guidance. You've taught me so much." Ethan shook his head. "You've taught me just as much, Sophia. You've reminded me of the power of integrity and courage. This company owes you more than you know." Despite the progress, challenges continued to arise. Sophia discovered discrepancies in the proposed terms during a critical negotiation with a potential partner in Singapore. The partner, a prominent figure in the local market, had attempted to include hidden fees that would have cost Carter Enterprises millions. Sophia immediately flagged the issue and brought it to Ethan's attention. Together, they restructured the deal, saving the company from a significant loss. The incident reinforced Sophia's reputation as a sharp, reliable leader who trusted her. Personal growth and reflection. Amid her new role's demands, Sophia reflected on how far she had come. The young waitress who once hesitated to speak up had become a confident and respected executive. But her journey wasn't just about professional growth, but also deeply personal. One evening, after returning from a successful trip abroad, Sophia visited the cafe where she had worked before meeting Ethan. The familiarity of the place, with its warm lighting and the quiet hum of conversation, brought a flood of memories. Sitting at one of the tables, sipping a cup of coffee, she thought about the choices that had led her here. She thought about her mother, whose unwavering support had shaped her values. She thought about Ethan, whose belief in her had given her the chance to rise. And she felt about Logan, whose betrayal, though painful, had been the catalyst for her transformation. Sophia realized that her journey wasn't just about proving herself to others. It was about proving to herself that she was capable of greatness. And as she sat in the quiet cafe, she knew she had just begun. Ethan's reflections. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself reflecting on his growth. Logan's betrayal had shaken him and taught him valuable trust, resilience, and leadership lessons. Sophia's courage had reminded him of the importance of surrounding himself with people who shared his values. and her success had renewed his faith in the power of second chances. Ethan began to see the future with a sense of clarity and optimism. He felt a renewed sense of purpose with Sophia by his side and the company thriving again. Together, they built a business and a legacy founded on integrity, collaboration, and the courage to face challenges head-on. As the weeks turned into months, Ethan and Sophia continued leading Carter Enterprises to new heights. The expansion into Southeast Asia became a resounding success, and the company's influence on the global stage grew stronger with each passing day. But more than the success, the relationships they had built, the trust, the shared vision, the unwavering support, truly defined this new chapter in their lives. And both Ethan and Sophia knew that the best was yet to come. Months turned into a year, and Carter Enterprises thrived under the combined leadership of Ethan Carter and Sophia Blake. The company's expansion into Southeast Asia has proven successful and positioned it as a dominant player in the global market. Their challenges strengthened their bond, as colleagues and individuals who had weathered storms together. One late evening, after an intense strategy session for their next project, Ethan invited Sophia to dinner at a small, quiet restaurant downtown. It was a departure from their usual professional interactions, and Sophia hesitated momentarily before accepting. She admired Ethan deeply, not only for his leadership but for his integrity and resilience in rebuilding the company after Logan's betrayal. Over dinner, their conversation drifted from work to more personal topics. Ethan shared stories about his early days as an entrepreneur, the risks he had taken, the failures that had shaped him, and the mentors who had guided him along the way. For Sophia, it was a glimpse into a side of Ethan she hadn't seen before, a vulnerable and deeply human side that made her respect him even more. In turn, Sophia opened up about her life before Carter Enterprises. She spoke about the struggles she had faced while caring for her mother, her sacrifices to survive, and the doubt she had carried about her potential. Ethan listened intently, his admiration for her growing with every word. "You know," Ethan said, his tone thoughtful, "when I first met you at that cafe, I had no idea how much you changed my life. You didn't just save the company. You reminded me of what truly matters." Sophia smiled, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I think you give me too much credit. You gave me a chance when no one else would." "That's something I'll never forget." Their bond deepened that night, rooted in mutual respect and a shared understanding of perseverance. It was a moment that marked the beginning of a new phase in their relationship, one that went beyond titles and boardroom discussions. For the first time, they saw each other not just as a boss and an employee, but as equals navigating life's complexities together. As the second anniversary of Sophia's promotion approached, Carter Enterprises hosted a gala to celebrate its success and honor the people who had made it possible. The event, in a grand ballroom adorned with crystal chandeliers and elegant decor, was a testament to the company's resilience and growth. Ethan stood at the podium, addressing the room filled with employees, partners, and industry leaders. His speech, though polished and professional, carried a deeply personal undertone. "Tonight," Ethan began, "we celebrate more than just business achievements. We celebrate the values that have guided us: integrity, courage, and the belief that challenges are opportunities to grow stronger." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the room until it landed on Sophia, who stood near the front, radiating confidence and grace. "One person in particular embodies these values," he continued. "Someone whose journey reminds us that greatness isn't about where you start, but about the choices you make along the way." Ethan extended a hand toward Sophia, inviting her to join him on stage. The applause was deafening as she stepped forward, her heart pounding with pride and humility. "Sophia Blake," Ethan said, his voice steady, "you've inspired us all. Your courage to speak the truth, determination to rise above challenges, and unwavering dedication have personally transformed this company and me. I can't think of anyone more deserving of this recognition." Ethan handed Sophia a plaque with the words Leadership Excellence and Integrity Award. Overwhelmed, Sophia addressed the crowd, her voice filled with emotion. "I never imagined I'd be standing here today," she began. 2 years ago, I was just a waitress, unsure of my future. But one moment of courage changed everything, not just for me, but for all of us. This company has given me more than a job. It's given me a purpose and a family. And for that, I'll always be grateful." The crowd erupted into applause, but the moment wasn't just about celebration. It was about reflection. As Sophia looked at Ethan, she saw the man who had given her a chance to rewrite her story. And as Ethan looked at Sophia, he saw the person who had helped him rebuild his trust in people and himself. The start of a new chapter. As the evening wound down, Ethan and Sophia stood on the balcony, overlooking the city lights. The air was crisp, carrying with it the promise of new beginnings. "What's next for you, Sophia?" Ethan asked, his tone curious but warm. "You've accomplished so much already. Do you ever think about what comes after this?" Sophia smiled, her eyes reflecting a quiet determination. "I think about it all the time. But for now, I want to keep building what we've started. There's still so much we can do. New markets to explore, new challenges to overcome. And I want to be here for all of it." Ethan nodded, a sense of pride swelling within him. "I'm glad to hear that, because I can't imagine doing this without you." For Ethan and Sophia, the journey wasn't just about business success, but the legacy they were creating together. A legacy of trust, integrity, and the belief that courage and kindness could transform lives. As they stood side by side, looking at the horizon, they knew their chapters were still unwritten, and they were ready to face them together.